Is inimitable style, no matter how much the time is, he covers all the concepts. It's like putting sagar into the gagar, right? Right from the concept of yoga, as we have been enjoying, all the different sessions around it. I'm sure you would have enjoyed it, all the way up to the knowledge and the building the belief system, and then pretty much covering the whole 9 yards of spirituality. How we can do it, stitch it together in all of his keynotes is pretty amazing. Hope you enjoyed that. So, welcome to today's edition of Daily Wisdom from Bhagavad Gita. We will continue in the same vein because the theme has been yoga. So, we will look at it from Bhagavad Gita standpoint, right? We always hear about Bhagavad Gita gives us three bona fide paths: Karam Yoga, Gyan Yoga, and Bhakti Yoga, right? And what is the definition of yoga? What is true yoga? So we will do a deep dive from a scriptural standpoint to understand what is true yoga, and then what does it mean for us for our day-to-day lives. Right? Bhagavad Gita is known as a Brahma Vidya as well as a Yoga Shastra. Brahma Vidya means it's a divine knowledge that Lord Krishna has gifted to the humanity, and it is also a Yoga Shastra because has very, very practical nuggets for our day-to-day living. And that's what we do in our day-to-day sessions, daily sessions. And today we will do a deep dive into the concept of yoga. What is true yoga is what we are going to discuss. So let's get started. I'm going to share my screen. We start our sessions by invoking the blessings of God and Guru. And that's how we'll get started. I see one hand raised. Abhishek Mishraji, you had some question.
Radhe Radhe Abhishek ji, please go ahead.
Okay. We can get started. If there are some questions, we can take it probably after the session.
Could be for the reciting.
Oh, could be for the recitation. All right. That was being extremely proactive. All right. So let's get started. Are you able to hear me okay? Is my audio okay?
Yes. Yes. Okay. Absolutely.
We'll get started by invoking the blessings of God and Guru. Guru Brahma, Guru Vishnu, Guru Devo Maheshwara, Guru Sakshat Parabrahma, Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Vasudeva Sutam Devam Kamsa Chanuramardanam Devaki Paramanandam Krishnam Vande Jagat Gurum. Krishnam Vande Jagat Gurum. Okay. Radhe Radhe, a very warm welcome to all of you once again. So let's get started. Today we are going to talk about yoga. What is true yoga? And like we often do, I picked up a few verses to take the discussion forward from Bhagavad Gita. I picked up those verses which are relevant to our discussion today. Want you all to have your thinking caps on, and we can make it a very interactive, engaging session because I'm sure a lot of questions will come up. We are going to talk about the different parts, look at it scripturally, and we'll also talk about some of the stuff that people talk about when you advance spiritually, the Kundalini Jagaran and all that stuff, how important it is. We'll try to put all that stuff in perspective today. As well as the other parts as well. Also the concept of moksha, Brahmanand, Premanand, pretty much everything, because yoga is a pretty deep term and it has to be understood in its entirety for us to know what it means for us in our day-to-day life. So let's get started. The verse that I picked up today, in addition to a couple of other verses, 6.23, I will recite it and you're welcome to follow along. We'll pick up a few hands because we have a lot of content to cover today and a lot of discussion. I'm sure that's going to center around that as well. So the first one is 6.23. I picked up. I'll recite it and you're welcome to follow along. Tam vidyad dukh sanyoga viyogam yoga sangitam sanishchayena yoktavyo yogo nirvinna chetasa. Okay, we can pick up a couple of hands on this one.
Samji, Radhe Radhe, please go ahead.
Radhe Radhe sir.
Tam Radhe Radhe. Tam vidya dukkha samyoga viyogam yoga sannitam sanishchayena yoktavyo yogo anirvinna chetasa. Radhe
Very
Radhe.
nice. Thank you. Radhe Radhe.
Sandhya ji, Radhe Radhe, please go ahead.
Radhe Sandhya.
Radhe Radhe. Tam vidyad dukh sanyoga viyogam yoga sankhyatam sanishchayena yoktavyo yogo anirvinna chetasa.
Very nice. Thank you. Maybe we can take one more hand, then move on to the next.
Ramesh ji, Radhe Radhe, please go ahead.
Radhe Radhe Ramesh.
Yeah, Radhe Radhe. Tam vidya dukkha sanyogam viyogam yoga sannitam sanishchayena yoktavyam yogo nirvinna chetasa. Thank you.
Very nice. Thank you. So we'll pick the remaining hands on the next couple of verses. So in this one, Lord is saying that state of severance from union with misery is known as YOG. This YOG should be resolutely practiced with determination, free from pessimism. Okay. So we will get into the detail of this one as well. Now let's take the couple of other ones that go hand in hand. I'm going to recite it and then you can follow along. Kapi chet suduracharo bhajate mamananya bhak sadhureva samantavya samyak vyavsito hi saha क्षिप्रं भवति धर्मात्मा शश्वच्छान्तिं निगच्छति कौन्तेय प्रतिजानीहि न मे भक्तः प्रणश्यति. Okay, maybe one each you can pick up, so then we'll get started.
Pragi ji, Radhe Radhe, please go ahead.
Thank you. Kaapi chet suducharo bhajate mam ananya bhak sadhure samantavya samyagye vesito hi saha.
Nice, thank you, Pragiji. We can do alternately, remaining hands,
Yes.
maybe one 930, other 931, kind of.
Yeah. Aarti ji, Radhe Radhe, please go ahead with Shloka 931.
राधे राधे
Radhe.
क्षिप्रं भवति धर्मात्मा शाश्वच्छान्ति निगच्छति कौन्तेय प्रतिजानीहि न मे भक्तः प्रणश्यति. राधे राधे.
Very nice. Thank you.
Thank you. Riya ji, Radhe Radhe, please go ahead.
Thank you. Radhe Radhe.
Radhe.
Api che sudhuracharo bhajate mam ananya bha sadhur eva samantavyah samyak vyavasito hi saha.
Very nice. Thank
Radhe
you.
Radhe.
Aparna ji, Radhe Radhe, please go ahead.
Radhe Radhe. The next one, right? Kshipram.
Yes, 931.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Kshipram bhavati dharmatma shashvachantim nigacchati kaunteya pratijanihi name bhakta pranashyati. Thank you.
Very nice. Thank you. Let's freeze the hands so that we can continue after this.
Yes. Gulab ji, Radhe Radhe, please go ahead.
Radhe Radhe. Radhe Radhe everyone. Can you
Yes.
Please go ahead.
Yes. Kshipram bhavati dharmatma sasyanti nigacchati kanteyo pratijanihi name bhakta pranasyati. Thank you.
Very nice. Thank you. So I think we have content to cover, so we'll have to start the remaining hands. Let's get
Yes.
started. I think there's a lot of backdrop coming up. So let's get
Yeah.
started. Rupaji, Udayji, and Anitaji, sorry about that. We'll probably have you first preference in the next one. So
Yes.
let's get started. We have a lot of content to cover, so I wanted to get started with the session. So in this shloka, Lord Krishna is saying, even the vilest, if I'm pronouncing it right, sinners worship me with exclusive devotion. They are to be considered righteous because they have made the proper resolve. And then he goes on to add, quickly they become virtuous. Okay, so if you are a sinner, we have enough examples. I don't want to call that out right now. Examples in history where when you start inculcating devotion towards God, you can become virtuous very quickly, right? Mara, Mara, Mara example, we know that. So you quickly become virtuous and then attain lasting peace. O son of Kunti, declare it boldly that no devotee of mine is ever lost. So let's get started with our topic of our discussion today. The theme is yoga, right? We are celebrating yoga festival. So let's get started on that. Now, if you look at it graphically here, you have misery on one end and then you have bliss on the other end. And in between, you are kind of neutral, right? In between. So your disposition could be, you could be in misery and you say, God, finish off my misery. Okay, enough of this world. I just want to get beyond that. Okay, that could be one of the aspiration. And then what may happen is you come to neutral. Your dukh nivritti has happened. You have come out of misery. Okay, that is one way. Now, have you attained bliss as yet? Dukh has vanished. Is that bliss? Not yet. Okay. We'll look at it scripturally as well. Now, there is another possibility where you can go beyond that as well. Not just finishing off your dukh, but going to the bliss aspect of it as well. Now, let me give you a loose analogy around it. Let's say you have a fever. Do you feel like eating anything at all during fever? All the favorite dishes that you have, chola bhatura, gulab jamun, whatever, you say, no, no, no. Just give me khichdi and that's all I need. Maybe your appetite will also go for a toss. And then you pop in a paracetamol, something like that, your fever is gone. Now, fever is gone, but you have still not started enjoying what you wanted to enjoy, right? So it's a very loose, crude analogy, not directly mapped to the spiritual concept that we are going to talk about, but kind of gives you an idea. After you get well, you have to do something. So similarly, there is a possibility of bliss. Dukh nivritti is one aspect of it. Dukh nivritti, fever has come down. No more fever ever again after popping in that pill, okay, that magic pill. But you have still not started doing what you could do after that. And there are possibilities of higher bliss after you become well, okay, and that is called the bliss that we are going to talk about. Now, why am I introducing it? We'll build on this concept, okay. So one is, of course, here is your misery. Misery evaporates. So that itself is a bliss. Misery is all done. It's a good bliss to have, right? However, you can actually go on and attain higher bliss than that after that as well. Now, the state of yoga implies both. We are talking about yoga. It's attainment of bliss, which is called Anand Prapti, and second is freedom from misery, both. So it's like a beggar. Now, the beggar could make a goal. Somebody asks him, okay, I will give you a blank check, not in a physical check, a wish basically. What do you want? So beggar could either ask, okay, remove my poverty. Okay. Or he could say, make me a trillionaire, billionaire. Poverty will automatically be removed. So in this case, if we make our goal attainment of bliss, the freedom from misery will automatically happen. It will be a natural consequence of it. We know the story of Satyavati, who Yamaraj was taking her husband and she said, no, give him back to me. And he said, no, his time is up. You have to, you cannot give it back. That's the law. So then she said, okay, then give me a boon instead. He said, okay, go ahead. He said, okay, give me a boon of 100 sons. He said, Tathastu. Now she needs a husband, right? So the point here is when you go for attainment of bliss, the freedom from misery has already happened. And that is the technical difference that we are going to talk about today, because the topic is yoga, and we can attain yoga in both the ways. We can either ask God to remove our misery. He's more than happy to do that. He said, all right, that's fine. Or we can ask for his divine bliss, okay, which when he gives, he anyway has to take you beyond the misery. Okay. So keep this thought in your mind, because now we are going to introduce the concepts, deeper concept around it, that we are going to have a pretty good discussion on today. Okay, so hope you got that part. Now, Lord Krishna in 9:30 and 9:31, okay, what he's saying, let's look at that. The Jnani person of knowledge, because Jnana Yoga is a bona fide path, we know that, right? He's not saying about Jnana Yoga, by the way, he's talking about Jnani only. Okay. Will not be lost. Is he saying that in this particular verse, 9:30, 9:31? Answer is no. He's not saying that. Next is the karmi, the performance, the person who religiously performs all the rituals shall not perish. Is he saying that in this verse? He's not. What is he saying in that case? What he's saying is unequivocally, he's very clearly stating that he makes this promise for his bhaktas, devotees, saying that they shall never come to ruin. Okay, this is what he's very clearly stating. So, in order for you to enjoy God's protection, you need to be a devotee. It's a very simple thing. Why? Is he being partial towards other? No, he's not being partial. He's simply stating, if you are taking control, if you think your means are good enough for you to continue to progress and attain his grace, that are not sufficient actually. He's letting you do it on your own. It's like a son telling to father, I can take care of myself and I don't need you. So father will say, I'll take a back seat. So ritualistic people or jnanis. So we spoke about this concept. There are three ways we can actually strive to attain God. What are those three ways? The first kind of people, not even strive God. Their means is the world and the goal is also the world. Okay, so they will do worldly things, like they will put in hard work, all that stuff they will do, and their goal is God, world itself. Like, I want to have the next big house, I want to have the next big designation, I want to become an executive in my organization, I want to have the latest model of Tesla that is going to come out, I want to go to that grand vacation that I had always planned for, exotic vacation. So the means is the world and the goal is also the world. Okay, that is the materialistic people who operate in materialistic consciousness. The second category of people is the means is the world, the goal is God. Although the goal is God, but the means is the world. World means they think through ritualistic practices or through their self-effort, all the different kind of ritualistic practices or the sadhanas they can do, they can attain God. Okay, those are called karmis. Okay, you can do karma, you're not bringing God into the mix. You think through your self-effort alone you can attain God. God says no, that will also not do. And the third category of people are the means is God and the goal is also God. So they understand they have limitations. But Swamiji was talking about being humble. From distance, the mountain appears, equal to you, but as you start getting closer, this dawns upon you that it is much bigger than you are, and you are so insignificant. So you understand that you have to rely on God's grace to attain God, right? So both means as well as the goal becomes God. And those are the ones who enjoy God's protection and course correction along the way. Devotees is what he's talking about, right? And in this verse, he's saying he personally carries the burden of maintaining those who depend on him and engage in exclusive devotion unto him. Now, devotees become his responsibility, right? Such a huge relief. It's not my headache, it's God's responsibility, and God has to take care of me. Isn't it a good situation to be in? And he's saying, I'm willing to do that for you. Okay, provided you start becoming ashrit on him. So it's not a 0-1 thing where you are not ashrit and tomorrow you are ashrit. It's a journey. But the more ashrit you start becoming, the more more intervention, course correction, and responsibility he starts taking on you. So if you want to give God protection this much or his grace this much, you do this much surrender. If you need this much, you do this much, this much, this much, keeps on expanding. So this is the principle he's talking about. Okay. Let's move on. Now, another interesting thing is he's saying that declare it boldly to Arjun. We have spoken about this concept as well. He's not declaring it himself. In 9.31, if you go, he's telling Arjun, you declare it boldly. Why? Because under extraordinary circumstances, God may break his own vow. But when it comes to his devotee, he can never let his devotee down. Right? Because God's very definition, name is being Bhakt Vatsal, being Bhakt Vashya. So many things. So for his devotees, he can never break his word. Right? Like in case of Mahabharata, it happened. He break his vow that he will never lift a weapon. But when it came to Bhishma's vow, who was his devotee, he said, either I will make him break his vow or I will kill Arjun tomorrow. So Krishna went ahead and break his vow to keep his devotee's word. So God says, I can break my word occasionally under rarest of rare circumstances, but I will not break the word of my devotee. That much protection, care, and affection a devotee enjoys from God. Okay? So that is the key thing to understand. Now, let's move on. What do I want to talk about here? So what does our scriptures say about that? Bhakti Shatak say, Karma Yoga Aru Jnana Sab Sadhan Yad Pib Khan Radhe Radhe Pai Binu Bhakti Sabai Janu Mritak Deha Binu Pran Radhe Radhe. Now God is talking about Jnani and Karmi. He's not talking about Jnana Yogi or Karma Yogi. When you talk about Yoga, then you have to mix devotion in it. And devoid of devotion, Bhakti Shatak says, although the scriptures define the paths of Karma, Yoga and Jnana, if these are without Bhakti, these paths are like a dead body with no soul. Dead body with no soul. So you have to mix Bhakti. Yoga is actually the secret ingredient. See, we are talking about yoga in physical, say, right? Like we talk about the yogic exercises and stuff. This goes much deeper, right? This is the path where you're striving for union with God. Yoga itself is union with God. And that basically means taking your mind to God. That means cultivating sentiments, loving devotional sentiments for God. And that is essentially what yoga is. You mix yoga with karam, it becomes karam yoga. You mix yoga with gyan, it becomes gyan yoga. You mix yoga with bhakti. Bhakti anyway is yoga only, right? Bhakti is nirashrit. It can stand on its own. But Gyan and Karam need the addition of devotion for those paths to fructify. That is the technical difference. Even Ramayana says, Yog Kuyog Gyan Agyana Jit Nahi Ram Prem Pardhana. So you need love for Ram. Otherwise, that Yog becomes Kuyog, that Gyan becomes Agyan. Okay. So that is the important thing to understand. Yoga, when we talk about, it is actually bhakti. That is the key ingredient or the secret sauce, regardless of which path you are on. And if you are on a path where you are simply acquiring knowledge, then it will lead to pride, and it is not gyan. It is actually agyan. Because is it right? Samajh ki had hai gyan, or gyan, and gyan ki had hai prem. So the true Gyan is the one which should lead you to love God. And if you are acquiring knowledge and it is not leading you to develop love for God, then it is called Agyan. And similarly, the true Karam is the one that should help you cultivate devotional sentiments for God, because He's enable karmas. Right? Without His energy, we can't even perform anything, right? So if that sense of gratitude, or if that sense of understanding that it's through His energy, you are just a mere instrument, right? Anything good gets done, then even the karma should lead you to develop those sentiments for God. And if it is not leading you, those karmas are simply reduced to ritualistic activities, then it is called a karma, basically. So both of these aspects need devotion to God for it to actually be called as a true yoga. Otherwise, those paths are devoid. It's like a, this analogy is very powerful. It's like a dead body without a soul. What are you going to do with that? Nothing. Okay. It's just an exercise one may continue to do. And it's like adding zeros. You are doing rituals, right? You are doing chantings and your mind is in the world. So you are adding zero, 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 zeros. The one before all the zeros is the devotion. You add that one, and now see the effect of those zeros will start amplifying. 1 0 you add, we know how much impact it can have. So either we are adding zeros, but if you add one before that, then you are amplifying the effect of the zeros that you are adding. So whatever karma you're doing, whatever gyan you are acquiring, if it is preceded with devotion, then you are really making it count. It can have a compounding effect. But if it is devoid of devotion, it is simply adding zeros without that one that is really needed. So that is the key thing. That is the true yoga. Okay. Now, also it says, Krishna kripa binu chay nahi, maya ati balwan, sharnagat par ho kripa, ye Gita ko gyan. Okay, Maharaj Ji has summed it up this very nicely in this one verse. He says, Maya is so powerful that it can't be eliminated without Shaktiman Krishna's grace. The grace is received only by selflessly surrendering to him. This is the essence of Gita's teaching. Now we can do a session on surrender itself. That could be a topic in itself. Okay, what does surrender mean? What does Sharnagat mean? That is for another day. But let's understand that we need to draw God's grace to attain God. That is not something we can attain through our self-efforts alone. You can reach the peak of certain materialistic milestones, could be some siddhis, could be a kundalini jagaran and stuff like that, but that has nothing to do with attaining God or getting closer to God realization. Okay, however much your mind would tell you or make you believe that, but that is not the case. Okay? That is the bad news. Now let's look at it again graphically. I had created this long back, but it comes in handy with fairly periodically. So here is a graph where we will talk about material desire, okay, on one end, which is called bhakti, by the way. Material aspirations, I want to do this, I want to enjoy that. Swamiji was talking it about bhog. Only when you've reduced that bhog to an extent that it starts becoming yog, can you harbor any spiritual ambitions. So this is all bhog realm that we are talking about, okay, the material desires, which is in positive. So there cannot be any spirituality with desire. So if you have all the desires, even Buddhism talks about, right, reducing the desires. So the spirituality cannot go hand in hand with all the material desires. You are actually operating in that bhog aspect of it. So this is material aspiration. So let's say this much material aspiration or bhakti that we have in our heads. And then with repeated practice, contemplation, understanding, knowledge revision, we start diminishing it over time. We start putting it into perspective. This is not going to give me happiness. I've tried it hard enough, long enough. It doesn't work that way. Then what happens? It starts reducing, right? And there would come a day where it would reduce completely, which is called a state of mukti, nirvana, desire is zero, right? In Buddhism, even Bhagavad Gita ends at moksha. It is spiritual. Now you have entered the spiritual desire. Now you had fever. Remember the first graph I showed? You are negative, you are in misery, and from misery now you have come to neutral position. Dukha nivritti has happened. So now you are spiritual. The dukha nivritti, moksha, nirvana, everything has happened. Okay, so now you have come here. Having said that, now when we reject both bhukti and mukti, so this is called mukti, nirvana, moksha. Now bhukti we all understand, we have to reject that. Now let's bring in this revolutionary concept. Okay, for a lot of you it may not be revolutionary anymore, but it's typically a revolutionary concept for most people. Bhukti rejection we understand. Okay, there is no happiness in this world. So we said, okay, we have to reject it. Right now I'm not able to, but one day I will. At least I understand it. Now this concept says you reject mukti also. Now you reject moksha, nirvana, dukha nivritti also, yes. Because when you do that, now you are entering into, this whole area that you're talking about is within bhukti mukti realm. Okay, the circle that you see. And when you start rejecting that also, okay, that is where you start getting into the positive aspect of it. Now from neutral to the positive, you are getting into. The fever is gone, but now you will start relishing the stuff, the possibilities after your fever is reduced, which is called positive spiritual desires. And this is desire to serve God. A person who is seeking mukti, there is no aspect of a desire to serve God. Nobody talks about that. Go to a Jnani, he'll say, what kind of a desire are you talking about? He say, if I have to desire God, to serve God, I'm operating in Dvait, and if I'm operating in Dvait, I'm still under a Gyan ignorance. Doesn't work that way. Dvait is a cause of bondage before God realization, and Dvait is a cause of higher spiritual realization after God realization, because now you have an opportunity to serve God, to interact with God, to personally associate with God, to be part of his leelas, to be part of his divine abodes. That opportunity is forfeited if you simply limit yourself to moksha and mukti. So when you reject both bhakti and mukti, and you have a desire to serve God, that's when you start getting into the other aspect of it, which is called, and you do it for the sake of God's happiness. Okay. And this realm now that we are going to talk about is called bhakti. Nishkam bhakti, ask for selfless seva of God. God is the goal, and it is again a spiritual aspiration, and that gives you an eligibility or an entitlement for the highest prize of God, which is called divine love. Okay, this is how this process goes. Hope it makes sense. So you start with bhakti, you start reducing bhaktis. Now, if you limit yourself to say, okay, no more bhakti, fine, you get mukti. You say, no, I'll reject mukti also. Then you start getting into the higher and higher realization, the personal association of God, and it basically leads you to divine love, which is the topmost prize of God. There's nothing more God can give you. Why? Because when you get divine love of God, he becomes your slave. And then the creator has become your slave. There's nothing more to achieve. Okay. Nothing more to achieve. When I say in bhakti, there is no Purnima. You don't say, okay, I have capped my bliss. No, it keeps on increasing. It's ever fresh, ever increasing, and everlasting. Okay, that is what it says. I hope that makes a bit of a difference. Now you may say, no, mukti itself is enough. Okay, that is fine. Now let's understand it from a scripture standpoint with regards to, okay, so let me bring in the concept of awakening Kundalini as well now. Kundalini, which part of that quadrant are you operating in? Are you at mukti? Are you at bhakti? Or are you at divine love? You know, we saw the previous one. Keep this image in your mind. Now, when you talk about Kundalini, because it fascinates a lot of people, and there are Kundalini cafes also, not cafes, but studios also, which have people that are open where they say, okay, you come in and we will help you with your Kundalini. Okay. Now, let's try to put it in perspective. Now, this Kundalini power or awakening of your chakras, let's understand a little bit about it. It leads to siddhis. Okay. You can actually do a lot of funky stuff. It will lead you to siddhis or mystic powers, and also induces the upward movement of your Kundalini power. You know, the Kundalini power keeps on rising. These mystic powers, such as, you know, what you can do with these powers, you can make your body small, big, you know, how cool it will be. You're sitting in a meeting and you can freak your manager out, right? Or large, you know, those kind of things. You can read minds. You can walk on water, light as feather, ability to create and stuff like that. All that is possible. However, it is a material power and not a spiritual power. Let's understand that. Okay. And it can lead to pride. And we know that pride can lead to, you know, the only thing God does not, he's not like us who hates, or, but one thing that he doesn't like is pride. And he has, you know, what does God have for breakfast, dinner, and lunch? He has pride for breakfast, dinner, and lunch. Okay, so finally it will lead to downfall. That is essentially what it means. So if you know what God eats, the favorite thing that he eats is pride. Okay, he does that leela even with gopis for that matter. When they develop pride during Maharaj, that, oh my God, how beautiful we are, Krishna is with us. We are getting personal attention from him, and all Krishna vanished immediately. He does that to Naradji very frequently. So the pride is the first thing that cometh before a fall. I think it's a statement from Bible. pride cometh before fall or something like that. Okay, so it can lead to pride. Secondly, you are still operating in material world. Okay, it's nothing to do with spiritual thing. You're not even close to mukti. And recommended for people who have less faith in God and have not understood the concept of relationship of the soul with Almighty. Okay, if you are operating in world, chamatkar, magic, and all that stuff, and acquiring some mystic abilities is your goal, then you can go for these things. And then the flip side, it does not help you develop love for God. And it's an immense power, if it is not controlled properly, can result in delirious side effects for both body and mind. So do it at your own risk is essentially what the message is. If you don't bring love for God into the equation, you are on a very dangerous path. Okay, it can lead to downfall. It can lead to your, side effects such as for your body and mind, and can have long-lasting impacts. And why to build sanskar, something which is not going to be helpful for your journey in long run anyways, right? It's not very smart to do that. Now let's look at it. The mukti, the bliss of mukti is called Brahmanand. Now somebody may say that mukti is good enough. Okay, I have done my dukh nivritti and I'm happy. That is perfectly okay. So let's try to compare it a little bit. Okay, so here you have, which one is heavier? Let's look at it. Here you have an ocean of Brahmanand, ocean of mukti, ocean of moksha, ocean of nirvana. Okay, all of it put together, it's on one side, which essentially means bliss of moksha, bliss of impersonal God, light, bliss of nirakar aspect of God, bliss of Brahman. That is essentially what it is. And on the other hand, let's put a drop of Premanand, which is the bliss of the divine bliss of God. Which one should be heavier? One side you have an ocean, one side you have a drop. Okay, let me thicken the plot. I will say not even drop. You take the bliss of divine, the divine love of God, personal form of God, sakar aspect of God, not even the drop. You take a needle of that, right? Still it will be heavier. That much powerful the divine love of God is. Now the choice is up to us basically, right? So this is what our scriptures are telling us. So this drop, if you put a needle into this drop and take the needle out, so whatever trace is remaining, you taste that of Premanand, you can actually sacrifice infinite Brahmanands in front of it. That is how powerful it is. Okay, so the divine love of God, but for that, you have to not only reject bhukti, you have to reject mukti also. Because if you go for mukti, you will limit yourself to Brahmanand only. Hope it makes sense. So with that said, it is a journey of faith, of course. Knowledge is important. I got a question, I think, from Komalji, that why do we need knowledge? Just love God. That is perfectly okay. That is perfectly okay. If you have acquired enough faith, because jane binu hoye na partiti, binu partiti hoye na priti. Only when we understand the value of something do we develop love for it. Now, we might have done a lot of work in our past lifetime where we don't need it. You see a lot of people who are not well educated in villages and all, they can do bhajan. They don't need a lot of intellectual convincing and all that stuff, which is great. They might have had those sanskars. However, if you do it without knowledge, our scriptures say it's a journey of faith. Now, if you are approaching knowledge without bhakti, it is called a lame zone. Knowledge without bhakti is lame. It does not have legs to walk on. And if you do bhakti without gyan, it is blind zone. The risk is, if you do bhakti without proper knowledge, then your faith can shake. Okay, tomorrow somebody will say, you say, no, what are you doing this bhajan and all that? So, Shiv Bhagwan is the highest. He is more powerful, Mahakaleshwar. You'll say, oh, really? And you'll switch to him. No, he'll say, no. By the way, Shiv Bhagwan, he says, Ram Bhagwan is your spiritual father. He's more powerful. You'll start doing Sitaram. Then they will say, what? No, Krishna was the Purna avatar. You'll say, Radhe Sham. No, Krishna used to chase girls. He was Lampat. You'll say, okay, no. So you'll be all over the place. Okay. And then you will be doing too many of bhaktis. Ananyata will not come. So many things can happen. So it is bhakti without knowledge is blind zone. So both are equally important until you reach a level and finally bhakti is good enough. You don't need anything else. And if you continue doing that, it's like two bullock carts. You need two bullock carts to plow a field. You need both knowledge and gyan, bhakti. And after a point, it's only bhakti. Up to a stage, you need a proper gyan, right? Tattva gyan, even Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has said, right? Na karo alas when it comes to acquiring Tattva Gyan. It's very important to get your fundamentals right around this concept. And after your fundamentals are sorted out, Gyan is not needed. After that, it's only Bhakti. But the Tattva Gyan aspect of it has to be rock solid because that is your foundation. Otherwise, you will be all over the place based on what people are saying, opinions, and whichever way the wind is blowing, you'll be blowing that way as well. Okay. Like the other day, I was saying, I was asking this guy, the Murti part of it, and somebody was saying Krishna is in fashion these days. I said, fashion? Krishna can never go out of fashion, right? So, anyways, Gyan is important. And in Bhakti, there is no Purnima. Okay. After Gyan, you reach a peak, right? You see the plateau, flattening of the curve. No more Gyan is needed after that. And in Bhakti, to Gyan reaches full moon. Okay, there's no need for Gyan after that. But in Bhakti, it is like the waxing moon. Peak of Bhakti, never. You continue doing it forever and it never ends. Why? Because when you do Bhakti, what do you get? You get more Bhakti. And when you get more Bhakti, what do you ask for? More Bhakti. And God does not run out of his Bhakti fund, and Bhakta never runs out of seeking for more Bhakti. So that competition continues forever and there is no Purnima in Bhakti. That is how this process goes. Any questions? I know I've been talking a lot today. Let's open it up for any questions. I see a few hands as well.
I see a few hands. Surya Prakash ji, Radhe Radhe, please go ahead.
By the way, good to see you back after long.
Yesterday I came.
Oh, you came yesterday?
Yeah, I talked to you also. I want to share this when Bhakti and this one, sir. Can I, 2-3 minutes, can I take your time, sir?
Yeah, real quick, make it because we have quite a few hands.
Once what happened, there was a quarrel between the Satyabhama and Rukmini. Means the Narad gives Parijata flowers to Rukmini and Satyabhama gets annoyed. And she gets the Kalpa Vriksha itself from Swarga, from Indra he got and keeps it in his house, at her house. Then after that, one day Narad told, if you donate equivalent quantity of Sri Krishna to somebody, then Krishna will be always with you. He will not go to neither the Rukmini to other wives. Then she does puja and she want to donate the amount of the gold equivalent to Lord Sri Krishna. Then before donating, he says, no, I know your weight, I can donate that gold. Somehow she was putting one side Krishna and another side she was putting gold, she could not equal. Then somehow she went and requested Rukmini. She put one tulsi leaf, then it becomes equal.
Yes.
So means tulsi one leaf was able to weigh Krishna.
Very true. Very nice story. I know Satyabhama story where Krishna could not be weighed with gold, and then finally the tulsi leaf is what that. So even in Bhagavad Gita, right, Lord Krishna says, Patram Pushpam Phalam Toyam. When you offer it with love, right, he accepts it. And tulsi leaf anyway, when you have that offering with love, God, comes at par and says, okay, I accept it at that point. So thank you for bringing that story. Surya Prakash, yes, I remember. I spoke to you yesterday and said, we'll bring in your story tomorrow. So I'm glad you were able to.
I already sent through in, I have put in that WhatsApp
feedback
daily.
Yes. Thank you so much for that. Let's take the remaining hands as well. Quite a few people have raised their hand.
Yes.
Please fill out the feedback tracker, by the way, if you are new to the session. And if you have any suggestions or anything, please do put in your remarks in the feedback tracker as well. I read through it and then try to answer questions, any questions that are posed there as well. So please post the link if you have not already. Let's take the remaining hands. I see, let's have Shilpa ji from LA. New hand I'm seeing.
Yes, Shilpa ji, Radhe Radhe, please go ahead.
Radhe Radhe everyone, Radhe Radhe Nitinji sir. I'm a little confused as to why Mukti and Moksha are on the same line and why isn't that tiered? why isn't that a tiered approach for bhakti?
It's not a tiered approach, actually.
Yes.
Tier would mean you have to sequentially go through that. Is that what your question was? Shilpaji, you there? Can we unmute her?
Yeah, let me please unmute her. Shilpa ji, please go.
Yes. Right here in this slide, it's mukti / so it says mukti and or nirvana and or moksha. So right here, I'm wondering, why is mukti and moksha on the same line? Why isn't moksha
Right.
above mukti?
Mukti and moksha are the same, synonymous. Is your
So that-
understanding different?
I understand mukti to be just done with one life, and we come back again and again, reincarnated into a
Mukti
different
means
body.
you are done from. Mukti means you are done from the cycle of life and death. It's essentially moksha only. Mukti
Oh,
means
Okay.
mukti and moksha are synonymous. And there are people who are jivan mukt. That means you are no longer obliged to come back to this cycle of life and death. So mukti and moksha and nirvana are synonymous.
Okay. So that means our soul has become one with the God in mukti
Yes,
and moksha.
Exactly.
Got it.
Exactly. And
Got it.
it's not a tiered approach in the sense that you have to first attain nirvana and then nothing of that sort. It's
Got
not
it.
tiered in sense. Not tiered in the sense that, okay, yes, there are levels if you look at it that way, but
Yes.
not necessarily that it is sequential.
Okay. I thought mukti was where you have to, your soul has to come back, keep changing the body, and moksha was where your soul
No.
joined with God's. Okay.
Okay, no. So
Got it.
hopefully I clarified it today. Mukti and
Yes.
moksha.
Mukti and moksha are the same thing. Okay.
Yes,
Thank you.
Shilpaji, I remember you promising to sing on one of the days. Okay, hopefully today is the day then.
Can I?
Okay,
Sure.
maybe you can take, okay, but I do remember it very. See, my memory is fading, but on few things it doesn't fade. Okay, and I remember you said I'm going to sing, so take your
Yes.
time.
Okay.
Let's try,
Sounds-
and we
sounds-
will love to hear from you. Okay, thank you so
Sounds
much for that.
Thank you.
Let's take Chiragji, the new hands, and then we can get to
Yes.
the Ashin Meji.
Sure. Yeah. Radhe Radhe, Chirag ji, please go
Radhe
ahead.
Radhe. So my question was regarding Kundalini awakening. As you said, through meditation we can awaken our Kundalini Shaktis. But even when we are doing Roop Dhyan meditation, some experience could happen, and that can also lead to Kundalini awakening. So
True.
will that lead to pride?
True. See, this is where knowledge comes in. See, we cannot underestimate the power of knowledge here, right? So these things can happen on this path, but you will keep on rejecting it. Okay, you will keep on rejecting it with an understanding that, you know what, if I fall for these things, then I'll not get the highest prize. If you don't have the knowledge, some person may think, okay, something is happening to me. Am I God realized? You know, that question might come to anybody every second day. Am I God realized? But if you have proper knowledge, you'll know, of course, I'm not. You know, I'm far away from this thing. So if you don't have knowledge, you can fall for these things. And what will happen is you can fall for people also who have mystic abilities thinking they are God realized. If they're able to produce certain chamatkars, just because they have awakened, you know, certain mystic abilities, you may think they are God realized, but they are still also operating in the material world. And that is where knowledge comes in. Knowledge is very, very important. So as a practitioner or as a devotee, you will keep on rejecting it. And a devotee rejects all these siddhis and all these things like a vegetarian would look at fish. Okay, they will not even, they just know it through their tattva gyan. They will say, no, I have to do that, because otherwise what will happen is, like, there is a beautiful song in Krishna serial, I love that song. He says, soch samajh ke sauda kijiye, ye nand ka lal bada vyapari. So Krishna is going to throw carrots your way all along. Okay, your testing has not yet started. On spiritual path, he will start throwing things. All right, you'll stop here, you'll stop here, you'll stop in this siddhi, at this thing, it's this bhukti. He has not even started testing it with bhukti as yet. What if he makes you president of the world, or the most beautiful person of this world, or the most famous person of the world? A lot of people will stop at bhukti only. Then people stop at mukti only. And then along the way, people can stop at siddhis only. So there are so many carrots he can throw your way to test your resolve, determination, and clarity. So a devotee would keep on rejecting everything, knowing that my goal is something different. I'm not going to get sidetracked. or allured by smaller prizes. They are not even prizes, by the way. They are poison actually. Siddhis are called poison in this path because you don't want to get sidetracked. And it can lead to your downfall very quickly. Because one of the things with siddhis is the more you use, the more it gets depleted. And of course, it will take your entire spiritual journey in a different trajectory altogether. I hope I answered your question, Chirag. Okay, now
Yeah,
let's get
thank you. Thank you, Nitinji. There is one question in chat which is related to this question, if I can take that.
sure.
Archana ji has asked, can the soul do bhakti after attaining mukti?
It's a very good question. And Maharaji used to say, few rarest of souls, if they are graced by God, or if they have had some sanskar of bhakti in one of their lifetimes, those seeds might sprout and they may come across a saint, and then they can get to Premanand, but chances are pretty slim. Very few rarest souls, because see, you have built those sanskars that God, there's no sanskar of serving God. It's like merging with God. So to undo those sanskars is very difficult, right? And once you are merged with God, you have already forfeited that opportunity. Having said that, there are exceptions, of course, but in very rare cases, right? If you have had some bhakti sanskars and if God graces, then opportunity might present itself. But typically, you have forfeited that opportunity to serve God and to attain divine love, if you have gone down that path and attained God in form of moksha or merging with Him completely. I hope I answered your question. Although it is not completely ruled out, but very rare.
Yeah, thank you for clarification, Nitinji. We can take some other hands as well. Thank you for waiting. Tanmay-ji, Radhe Radhe, please.
Radhe Radhe, Nitinji. Am I audible?
Yes.
Yes.
Nitinji, I have the question related to the surrendering aspect of God. The first two conditions clearly mention that we shouldn't desire it, against the will of God, and first one is we should desire according to the desire of God. So in the constant remembrance, like I'm practicing like for 24 hours, but eventually sometimes the desire, how do we confirm that, like what is the desire of the God, like if we are relating it with our life, everyday life? So
Yes.
this is very fundamental question.
Understood. Very good question. That's a very relevant question. How do we know what is the desire of God, right? How, for us to know the desire of God, we need to crack God's mind. And for us to be able to crack God's mind, we need to be God realized, right? So it's a chicken and egg kind of a situation.
This is chicken and egg problem.
Yes. So yeah. So the point here is, it's a very valid question. So in this case, you simply do the best in that particular. So you have the purity of intention. It is your insurance policy, right? Intuitively, you would know. I'm telling you, intuitively, you would know that you align to God's will a lot of times. But sometimes
Yes,
you are not.
Nitinji, this happens, but it diminishes.
Listen. Yeah.
Yes.
So more often than not, your intuition would guide you. It's like playing cricket. When you hit a shot, you know you have middled it. You have seen Dhoni, when he hit that shot, you know the job is done. Or when a cricketer hits a shot, he knows he's going to get caught because it was not middled. Similarly, a tennis player, when he hits a shot, he knows that he has middled it. So that feeling would come, oh, what I have aligned to God's will. But there will be times you are still not getting that feeling. Okay, it can happen.
Yes, this is happening.
In those cases, your sincerity at heart and purity of your intention is your insurance policy, because God is seated within. He knows there will be times you will not be clear, but He will still give you credit as long as you are approaching it with a pure intention. Intention is your insurance policy. Pure intention is your insurance policy. And that is how you go with it.
Thank you so much, Nitinji. Intention, I'll remember it.
Sure. Yeah, Swamiji has explained it very nicely. So purity of intention is always your insurance policy. Check your intention. Why am I doing it? Okay. And then God says, okay, done. You get credit for that.
Thank you so much. Thanks.
No worries.
Thank you, Nitinji. Sandhya ji, Radhe Radhe, please go ahead.
Radhe Radhe. So there's one thing, one piece of knowledge which I personally feel helps is this, that having this very strong, very firm belief that God will come in his personal form and will interact with us in such a manner that there will not be any scope of doubt. Like, like that. So that is where we need to reach. And if that really can happen, I mean, that will happen. So from that perspective, I guess our yearning will keep increasing, and whatever experiences others were describing, right? They should just like little bit siddhi aspects and stuff that will be like, I know that that has to happen. So I am going to, make that as my goal. So that really helps. And one thing I wanted to ask was regarding Uddhav. So was he also someone who had merged with God and then
No,
um,
Buddha was God's avatar. He came for a specific purpose. If you go to 24 avatars, which we teach to Balmukund as well, he's one of the avatars of God. Yeah. And if you look at the categorization of that avatar, he was Vishesha avatar like Narad Muni, where God gets his purpose done like an instrument. So he's also one of the avatars if you go through that. So he was not like
not like
special
after
avatar.
Mukti thing? Okay.
Yeah, he was a special avatar of God. Right, it's the biggest gift to humanity in the sense. He said, you work with your consciousness. You don't need to believe in anything. Like other day, I think Ramaji said that they do Shakti Bhakti, right? Kali Bhakti and all. But then if you ask most of the Buddhists, not most of the, again, I don't want to pass on that thing. People don't have to necessarily believe in God in order to practice Buddhism. They say you can just work with your consciousness and do that. And ask this question to Swamiji, can they attain nirvana by that practice alone? He said the grace of God has to be brought in at some point of time. That is needed. Because through self-effort, you can conquer Maya up to a certain level. You can conquer avidya Maya. You can get to that stage. But in order to conquer Vidya Maya, that grace aspect is needed, even in that.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you,
But yeah,
Nitinji.
this is a very good belief system that you build, that Krishna has to come and interact with me one day. That is essentially what bhakti is, right? Where you build that vyakulta or that desperation to meet God. And then finally he has to manifest. And this guy was doing this tapasya of Krishna. And he kept on doing it, kept on doing it, kept on doing it. And finally, after so many years, Krishna manifested in front of him. And when he manifested in front of him, he turned his face to the other side. Like, I'm katti with you. Krishna said, what happened? He said, I've been doing it for so many years. You did not do, and you took so long to come here. Krishna says, I was always here. Look at this small piece of stone. You see that tiny bit of black stone? That was the mountain of your papas. Okay. Now that they have come to a size which is, insignificant, you can see me. I was always there. Okay. That is the answer, Krishna gave. So that is how it works. He's always there. It's just that he'll start revealing himself based on how much purity and all that stuff that is needed basically to see him in the way he is. Yeah.
Wow, that's amazing. So someone has asked, Manju ji in chat has asked that about the class. Will there be this class every day? And if so, what timing? So yes, Manju ji.
Yes, Manjuji. It's an everyday class. If you're in India, it's Monday to Friday morning, 7:30 to 8:30 a.m. And if you are in US, it is 9 p.m. to 10 p.m. CST from Sunday evening to Thursday evening. So it's an everyday class. We do one verse a day, and then we go really deep into it and have some interaction and all that stuff. So please fill out feedback tracker. If you have any other questions, I'll be happy to connect with you.
Yes, feedback tracker link is posted in the chat window. And one more quick question is about the topic we are talking about is, why does merging with God, mukti, is not as blissful as serving God? Kriti
It's
ji
not
has
as peaceful as serving
Kirti ji
God.
has asked. Mhm.
Yeah, it's like see, it's like if you have a choice, would you taste rasgulla or become rasgulla yourself? I hope that puts in perspective.
Yes.
Would you rather relish honey as a honeybee, or would you become honey yourself? So that is the difference, loose analogy. But serving God is like you are interacting with the Supreme Personality, right? That bliss is considered much higher as opposed to merging with his effulgence alone.
Yeah, this is such a beautiful example, Nitinji. It always strikes like
Yeah.
it
I
is
like
easy.
Rasgulla, right? Rasgulla, and one day I become Rasgulla. No, you would like to taste Rasgulla, right?
Yes. Yeah. Thank you, Nitinji. We thank you, Tarunji, for waiting. Please go ahead.
Okay, thank you very much, Radha Radhe. So my question getting a bit contradict with the Bhakti and Mukti. So what I have understood from that Bhakti Shtak and from many Gita slokas that without Bhakti we don't get Mukti. So Mukti and Bhakti goes hand in hand. If we Bhakti yoga, then
Yeah.
Mukti we won't get
Your
So
voice
Mukti.
is breaking
And
actually. Hard to
is
understand.
breaking.
hello, is it
Yeah,
is it
now it is
better now?
better. Yeah. Yes.
So I was saying that what I have understood from many Gita shlok that the bhakti is uh, very much important to get the mukti. So mukti and bhakti goes hand in hand. And then the second part is someone also asked that so when the soul gets the mukti, so bhakti part would remain there. So the soul will continue to get bhakti as it might descend. So my question is this bhakti and mukti should go hand in hand?
See, Mukti, if you look at it, you want to merge with God, right? And finally, when you reach the peak of your Gyan, then your Guruji will say, Aham Brahmasmi will not do. You have to become Sharnagat to God. So you have to do Bhakti, basically, surrender to the Saguna Sakar Swarup. Then you get his grace and you merge with God. At that point, it's very, and that's my question. If you have always practiced millions of life just merging with God, why would you even have a desire to serve God, right? So God graces you, but then makes you merge with him at that point. But there could be exceptions in that case. So you need to do bhakti regardless. I get that point. But you still get moksha because that is what you have always aspired for. You wanted dukh nivritti. You wanted to merge with God. You wanted to be one with him. Ekatva. So God will give you that only at that point. And he'll not say, no, you know what, by the way, now I will give you a higher. He will not do that. He will meet you the way you want to meet. You want to meet him. Right? It's like, I want to meet you as a light. He will not say, no, 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 by the way, I have some other form. I will show you that. And now will that attract you? He'll say, no, I'll meet you the way you want me to. And he will meet you that way. If you worship God as an old man, he'll meet you as an old man. If you worship him as a 16-year-old, he'll meet you as a 16-year-old. If you worship him as a kid, he'll meet you as a kid. And that way it goes. And if you worshipped him as a light, when he graces you, he meets you as a light only. That is called mukti. But bhakti has to be done regardless, even to complete mukti. That is a valid point. I hope that makes sense. It will grow. If there are some more questions, we can discuss about it. But yeah, he will meet you the way you have always worshipped him, not in the way that he prefers or chooses to, right? It's your desire at that point that will be fulfilled, even though you have attained him. Okay, he'll meet you as a light only. But yes, to your point, bhakti is needed even then because you have to surrender to Saguna Sakar to draw his grace to complete your moksha process also. Yeah. Okay, Arunji.
Arunji, Radhe Radhe, please go ahead.
Yeah, Radhe Radhe. Just a basic doubt only around this. So, the difference between the two, Mukti and Bhakti, is just the fact that everything is the same except one is personal and one is impersonal. Is that the only difference?
Yes, that's right. If you look at Gyanis, they worship impersonal Brahman. Okay.
Okay.
Now,
So,
true Gyanis,
yes.
if you go to most of the Gyanis, they themselves are not sure what they are doing. They say impersonal Brahman, but they'll have deities also at their home. So they are doing something hybrid. But a true Gyani is always worshipping impersonal Brahman. But the partial, they are like, most of the Gyanis that I've seen, they are doing something hybrid. Okay, so I think they're themselves not sure about what they are doing. But true Gyanis, they always worship impersonal Brahman, not the personal form of God. But if somebody is
So
you don't know which way they will turn, right? So, yeah.
So when we say Vaikuntham Paramapadam, we are talking about bhakti, or we are talking about moksha?
Vaikunt is bhakti. Vaikunt is the Sankhya bhav. You remember within bhakti we spoke about different bhavs in which you can attain God. Vaikunt
Yeah.
is where you object-subject relationship with God. God is my king and I am at his feet basically. So that is where Vaikunt starts. Beyond Vaikunt comes Dasya bhav. Now it's no longer king. You can enter his palace. You can serve him as a das.
Correct. Correct.
Beyond that goes Sakya Bhav, like Arjun. Beyond that, Vatsalya Bhav. Beyond that, Madhurya Bhav. So Vaikunt is Sankhya Ras. It's not Brajaras because you don't have personal association. You are like, God is my king. You look at Narayan form, four-armed form from a distance, and you have realized God in that form.
Got it. Got it. But that falls in the category of bhakti only.
Yes, Bhakti only.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. So when you do Vaidhi Bhakti, if you're talking more about ISKCON, Vaidhi Bhakti, that is the Vaikunt Ras is what you are aspiring for. When you do Raganaga Bhakti, you aspire for Brajras. That's a difference.
Yeah. Aparna ji has asked a question. Does the body cease to exist after we attain mukti? If so, how can we attain prem ras without a body?
Okay, I think two different questions. Body cease to exist. We don't get this corporeal body made up of Pancha Mahabhut. Right? So that job is done. When we get divine verse, we get an upgrade. Okay, your body will get an upgrade. Like Arjun got a divine vision. All your mind, body, and senses would be divine at that point. Okay, they will not be made up of these 5 elements. They will be made up of Satchit Anand at that point. So that will be divine. So you get an upgrade because you need a body, chit, faculties like to experience God or to be part of his leelas, right? And you get an upgrade. That's it. It's like you upgrade your phone from a flip phone to a smartphone, and then you become from a flip phone to a smartphone at that point. Okay, some kind of an upgrade you will get. In Mukti, why do you need a body? Okay, you just perpetually enjoy the bliss. I don't know what happens at that point. You are in that Birja river, just perpetually enjoying the the bliss of becoming a Rasgulla at that point. You don't need anybody to do any interaction or anything, right? So I don't know what happens there, but in Prem, you do get an upgrade of a body so that you can interact with God.
Wow,
But that is not an
amazing.
ordinary body; it's an upgraded. Yeah.
Sandhya ji, Radhe Radhe, please go ahead.
Yes,
There's
Sandhya.
a question in the chat. To go from bhukti to mukti, should we not follow Patanjali Yoga Sutras, where the first 7 steps are just preparing your body and mind for the last step of samadhi? Is this path towards bhakti? And will this whole process, I mean, this whole process can take many, many lifetimes, right? Like that's the question.
Ashtang Yoga path. The Patanjali Yoga Sutra is an Ashtang Yoga path. Yes, all that process can be followed. It is actually Patanjali Yoga Sutra, I've spoken to Swamiji, is actually Bhakti in Shant Bhav. It is Bhakti in Shant Bhav. However, so you can actually do God realization, Bhakti in Shant Bhav, because Ishwara Paridhanat, it also ends at Patanjali Yoga Sutra, surrender to Ishwara, God. So yes, it is. But then it is through an Ashtang Yoga path. You still have to mix Bhakti into it. If you listen to Swamiji's Patanjali Yoga Sutra, you still have to mix Bhakti with it. So Patanjali Yoga Sutra is not limited to yogic postures only. Those help for a still mind, for a comfortable body, so that I can sit properly. But the point here is that even in that path, wherever the yoga is prefixed, you still have to do bhakti for that path to fructify. So if you listen to Swamiji's discourses on it, he has beautifully covered all the sutras and explained that meaning in depth, finally leading to surrender to God. So it is bhakti in Shanta Bhav, the Patanjali Yoga Sutras, essentially. But great question, actually. Yes. Actually, in bhakti, in devotion, you don't have to see yogic practices are good because unless your body is cooperating, how can you even focus, right? But it says sthir sukhasanam. If you can still sit still comfortably in some posture, that is what is needed. And for that, you have to maintain. As you grow old, even sitting still is very difficult. So yoga, that is why yoga is very important in our day-to-day life, because if we don't take care of our body, then in old age we will be doing bhakti of our body. How we will do bhakti of our body? Okay, this is hurting. We are thinking about that organ, that other organ, this organ, that organ. So it's important to take care of our body. But then from that standpoint, you should be able to sit still and be able to meditate, do your Roop Dhyan or whatever practice you do. And if you're following Ashtanga Yoga, of course, you can refer to Patanjali Yoga Sutra. So that is also a path to attain God in a Shant Bhav. You don't get into Brajras through Patanjali Yoga Sutra, you get up to Shant Bhav. If that is what your question was.
Great answer.
Yes.
Thank you so much, Nitinji. Sri Ramya ji, Radhe Radhe, please go ahead.
So we had to get into devotional segment after this. Sri Ramya and Kavita. We had two names, so I think we are moving to that. Sri Ramya now, or you had a question today?
I had a quick question today. Office, I'm in hurry, so no devotional today. Sorry, but I wanted to say that in Patanjali Yoga Sutra also the first statement says Ata Yoga, now yoga. So Swamiji told that to reach to that point also you should have had faith and enough bhakti to reach there. I just wanted to say that. Radhe Radhe.
Very nice. Thank you so much, Sri Ramya, for that. Radhe Radhe.
Yeah.
Okay, so
Sri
I know we
Ramya
have
ji has
overshot.
requested to sing tomorrow because
Okay.
she is at work today. Yeah.
Who?
Sri Ramya. Yeah.
No worries. I know we have overshot by 10 minutes already. We moved to devotional segment at 8:30 a.m. Today we had a lot of discussion, so we overshot. So typically after an hour we get into a devotional segment where we chant, recite God's names. Let's move to that. And if you have further questions, you can put it in the attendance tracker. I'll try to tackle it tomorrow. By the way, tomorrow we are going to talk about the topic of deity worship. Okay, that is another topic which can become a little controversial and people trivialize it. So we'll talk about that. Let's move on to our devotional segment then. Kavita, Shilpa ji has raised hand. Very nice.
Shilpa ji has raised hand.
And then Kavita, you there?
Kavita ji, are you there? I can see Kavita ji as well.
Great. So we'll take Kavita. Let's have Shilpa ji, our new hand that we are seeing, and then we'll take Kavita. Let's have a couple of singers today.
Yes, Shilpa ji, Radhe Radhe.
Radhe Radhe everyone, Radhe Radhe Nitinji sir again. So yeah, this is my crash bhajan today.
Sure.
Okay, I was just waiting for. I'm going to sing Raghupati Raghav. So first my Radhe Radhe and my pranam to Maharaji and Swami Mukundananji and Gopeshwari Didi and also Nitinji sir to you. All of these are my gurus. And also
I'm a facilitator, okay? If I don't deserve to be called in the same breath as all the names that you have said. So I'm just a facilitator. So please
thank
go
you
ahead.
for providing me this platform to say God's name and the bhajan that Swamiji has sang. So thank you for all this and for listening to God's name through my mouth. I'm very humbled.
Sure, please go ahead.
Just give me 1 second. I'm gonna.
I see quite a few new faces.
Yeah,
today.
I'm just gonna, sorry.
No worries. Thank you, Kanchanji, for turning on your video today. So it's always good to see faces, names.
Raghupati Raghav Raja Ram Patit Pavan Sita Ram 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 Sita Ram सीताराम ब्रज प्यारे तू सीताराम 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 भज प्यारे तू सीताराम रघुपति राघव राजा राम पतित पावन सीताराम रघुपति राघव राजा राम पतित पावन सीताराम अवध बिहारी राजा राम बनी आए वृंदावन श्याम 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 मर्यादा पुरुषोत्तम राम मति जन पर लव सोईरा श्याम मर्यादा पुरुषोत्तम राम गोपी जन वल्लभ सोई श्याम मर्यादा पुरुषोत्तम राम गोपी जन वल्लभ सोई श्याम रघुपति राघव राजा राम पतित पावन सीताराम अवध बिहारी जो श्री राम सोई भैरस बिहारी श्याम श्री राम जय जय राम 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 जय श्री राधे
Thank you, Shilpa ji, for coming out of your comfort zone and finally taking a lead today. Loved it. Very nicely sung. Thank you so much. I know you were not prepared for it. I put you on a spot and thank you so much for that. Loved it. Okay, we have Kavita next. Kavita, go ahead. All yours.
Kavita ji, Radhe Radhe. Please
Radhe
go ahead.
Radhe everyone. Okay, so my katha is about Vishnu avatar and it's a bit long, so I'll cover only first 4 avatars today. Okay.
Sure,
Shall
that
I
is fine.
start?
2 to 3 minutes are optimum for everyone. Yes, please go ahead.
Okay. Okay. हम कमलापति श्री हरि विष्णु की कथा सुनाते हैं, पावन कथा सुनाते हैं, धरा के पाप मिटाने ये कई रूप में आते हैं, हम कथा सुनाते हैं। मत्स्य रूप बना के भगवान सबसे पहले आए, एक दानव ने वेद पुराण जो जल में दिए डुबाए, डूबे वेद पुराण सभी तो छाने लगा अज्ञान, रूप मत्स्य बना आपने वेद बचाए हैं, राजा सत्यव्रत के महल में बन के मत्स्य आए, लेकिन ये आकार आपका पल पल बढ़ता जाए, छोटा पड़ गया राजमहल जोड़े राजन ने हाथ, बोले आप कौन है भगवान सच बतलाए आप, रूप चतुर्भुज सत्यव्रत को आप दिखाते हैं, पावन कथा सुनाते हैं, धरा के पाप मिटाने ये कई रूप में आते हैं, हम कथा सुनाते हैं। बोले सात दिन धरती पे प्रलय आएगी, ब्रह्म रात्रि हो ये सृष्टि बच ना पाएगी। करो एकत्रित राजन तुम सब जीव और बीज, बहुत बड़ी एक नौका फिर हम तुमको देंगे भेज। सप्तऋषियों के साथ तुम भी नौका में बैठ जाना, महाप्रलय से तुम बच जाओ बिल्कुल ना घबराना। महामत्स्य बन करके हम तुम्हें बचाएंगे, और सृष्टि का फिर से निर्माण कराएंगे। रूप मत्स्य इसीलिए श्री हरि बनाते हैं, पावन कथा सुनाते हैं। धरा के पाप मिटाने ये कई रूप में आते हैं, हम कथा सुनाते हैं। दूसरा है अवतार आपका कच्छप बनकर आए, दैत्य देवता मिलकर जब सागर मंथन को आए। विंध्याचल पर्वत को आपने पीठ पे लिया उठाए, शेष नाग की सहायता से है सागर मंथन किया। निकला जो हो राह तो भोले ने कंठ में थामा, लेकिन अमृत पीने को दोनों में हुआ हंगामा। दैत्यों को मोह लिया आपने मोहिनी रूप बनाया, तब जाकर अमृत तो है देवों के हिस्से आया। धर्म के रक्षक बन भगवान अब आ ही जाते हैं, पावन कथा सुनाते हैं। धरा के पाप मिटाने ये कई रूप में आते हैं, हम कथा सुनाते हैं। तीजा है अवतार आपका बनकर आए वराह, हिरण्याक्ष दानव निछपादी जो सागर में धरा। सभी देवता शरण में आपके फिर तो आए, बना बड़ा का रूप धरा को वापस है लाए। हिरण्याक्ष दानव को हरा देवों का रखा मान, वरना फैल रहा था भगवान दुनिया में अज्ञान। अपने दांतों बीच धरा को सागर से लाए, वारा अवतार की सभी देवता जय जय रहे बुलाए। दानव दानव कोई आपके आगे टिक नहीं पाते हैं, पावन कथा सुनाते हैं। धरा के पाप मिटाने ये कई रूप में आते हैं, हम कथा सुनाते हैं। नरसिंह रूप बनाया आपने चौथा लिया अवतार, हिरण्याकश्यप दानव का जब बढ़ गया अत्याचार। ब्रह्मा जी का तप करके वरदान लिया था मांग, नर नारी मुझे मार सके ना सुबह मरू ना शाम। प्रहलाद भगत की रक्षा करने खम्भ से हुआ आए, नर और सिंह का रूप भगवान आपने लिया बनाए। आधा बाहर आधा भीतर रख कर जंघा पर, फाड़ पेट हिरण्याकश्यप का दिया है फिर वध कर। जब जब पाप बढ़े धरती पर आप मिटाते हैं, पावन कथा सुनाते हैं। धरा के पाप मिटाने ये कई रूप में आते हैं, हम कथा सुनाते हैं।
Beautiful Kavita, very nice.
Rest
It
start
was a deja,
tomorrow. We'll come tomorrow.
no, very nice. It was a deja vu feeling. I think Seema and Monica ji had Seema had something similar in the past, right?
Yeah.
Very nice. You guys are
That
pretty
was Sagar
talented.
Manthan का था.
हाँ, वो इसी ट्यून में था. It was pretty much similar. I remember.
हाँ,
Good
same
job.
singer थे ना.
Yeah, very nice. Loved it.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Kavita. I think Anita Swamiji, if you're there, you wanted to sing something as well, real quick. Anita Swamiji, she wanted to, if you're there, you
Yeah,
could have it.
Anita ji, can you please raise your hand?
Okay, I see it. Okay,
I can see her.
Yes, well, yes, Anita ji, please go ahead.
Yes.
Mic is not
Radhe
on.
Radhe. Anita
Radhe
ji,
Radhe.
please.
Do you hear me?
Yes.
Do you hear me? Okay.
Yes,
Radhe Radhe.
yes.
I'll sing more Carnatic in a Krishna song. I will explain the meaning as well if you don't have any problem. Muralidhara Gopala Muralidhara Gopala Muralidhara Gopala Mukunda Shri Vaikunta Murali Dara Gopala Karunakara Kamala Nayana Karunakara Kamala Nayana Karunakara Kamala Nayana Karanila Mokil Varna Murali Dhara Gopala Mukunda Shri Vaikunta Murali Dhara Gopala Uriye. Thank you. One more stanza, just I'll finish it.
No, go ahead, finish it. I thought, sorry.
That means Makanachora. Butter, you are like a Naveen. Venne means butter. Tirudum Sirvirala. Makanachora, you come and then take the butter, silently stealing away the butter. That's what this line is about. Giriya Digya Harima Dava Harima Dava Harimadava Giriyandiya Harimadava. You are a Govardhana. You are just lifting the Govardhan in your fingertips. So that's what this line is about. Giriyandiya Harimadava Tirumagal Valar Tirumarva. You are carrying Lakshmi in your heart, Hriday Kamala. You are carrying the Shripati, you are a Shripati. You are holding Devi in your heart. Like how one should be following him. Purushottama quality is what they are talking about, this second line. Giriya Diya Harimadava Tirumagal Valar Tiruma Murali Edhara Gopala Mukunda Shri Vaikunta Murali Dhara Murali Dhara Murali Dhara Gopala 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 Jai Shri Krishna, Radhe Radhe.
Jai Shri Krishna. Anita ji, it's an honor and privilege to have you on this session. I think you are a trained singer.
Yes.
Beautifully sung. How long you've been attending our sessions for? I mean, we'd love to
This
hear
is
more.
the first day here, but I have been with JK, I think yoga since from the last month end that I attended West Coast retreat. So
Okay.
basically from a family of musicians in Chennai.
Yeah.
I'm from Chennai, but I can speak Hindi a bit, but not like you guys. Still time. Yeah.
Chennai. Okay. I've lived in Chennai for about a year. Very nice. Loved it. You know, the way you did that, and love to hear more from you. When we do have these sessions every day, would be great if you can join us. But thank you
Definitely.
so much. I'm glad. I know this session ran a little long today, but I'm so glad we could get an opportunity to hear you today.
Thank you,
so much.
but sorry to really ping you guys at the last minute. I didn't expect that there is a singing happening. Just
I'm
randomly
glad.
just was there, like in the Bhagavad Gita discourse.
Glad you pinged. I generally don't check the chats when I'm on the session, but for something inspired me to check out my chats today, and I saw your message. I said, "Yeah, sure, go ahead."
Thanks
and
for
I'm glad
that.
I.
Of
Thank you
course,
so much.
for Krishna and भगवान के लिए
Yes.
गाना गाना ही गाना.
भगवान के लिए गाना गाना सही बात है. दुनिया के लिए तुम गाते हैं, डांस भी करते हैं. भगवान के लिए बहुत कम मौका मिलता है.
Thank you so much for the
Thank you so
wonderful.
much for that. Yeah, I know we ran late. I know Pallavi, it's late for you as well. So thank you again for a wonderful, engaging session. I look forward to seeing you tomorrow. We'll talk about deity worship tomorrow. It is going to be another engaging session, and a lot of questions will come up, I'm sure. So loved every bit of it, and thank you so much, everyone. Have a wonderful day and great rest of your evening. And thank you everybody for the melodious chanting, singing. Each one of you brought Kavita, Shilpa ji, and then Anita ji. So thank you so much for that. And thank you, Kanchan ji, for turning your video on today. All right.
Thank you so much, Nitin ji, for another awesome, enlightening session for all of us. It's our blessing to be here in this session. And thanks to
Anita
all of
ji,
you.
and we can see Anita ji as well now. Thank you,
Yes,
Anita ji.
yes.
You can see the
Yeah.
face behind the melodious voice
The
now.
melodious, trained, beautiful singing. Yeah. Thanks for everyone, to each one of you, for your enthusiastic participation. Stay blessed. We all meet tomorrow.
See
We
you all
look
tomorrow.
forward for your session tomorrow, Nitin ji. Radhe
Thank you,
Radhe.
Pallavi. Good night. Radhe Radhe.